Sabetum pona everyone neme. Mano ehun sama enyambo. Sabeye ya nefi yanara. Enyanume. Gana ebahi bikoe Gana.
crave your indulgence to be upstanding for an anthem. Thank you. Afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The program is about to start, and I'd like to introduce our moderator for this forum, the Ghana Speaks High Level Forum 2024. And she's none other than a renowned broadcast journalist who is also a member of the Civic Forum Initiative representing the Trades Union Congress. And she's none other than Madame Na Ayele Adefiu Sechre. Please put your hands together for her.
Thank you very much indeed. Having already missed a lot of the time, I would like to go the easy way of our Nigerian brothers and sisters and say, all protocol observed. You're all most warmly welcome. On December 7th, 2024, Ghana will hold its 9th consecutive presidential and parliamentary elections since the return to democratic rule in 1992. These elections have witnessed smooth political power transitions, highlighting the country's growing constitutional order. However, the evolution of Ghana's political landscape has experienced a disturbing growing relationship between our political parties and armed vigilante groups, particularly in the lead up to the 2024 elections, fueling concerns about possible election violence. Well, the Institute of Democratic Governance and Civic Forum Initiative have analyzed the contextual political security conditions in the country. They have highlighted an ominous situation that could lead to inconclusive polls and outbreak of mass electoral violence if not addressed. Critical factors underpin the anxiety and the risk of inconclusive polls and outbreak of mass electoral violence in 2024 and beyond, which is why we're gathered here this afternoon. And so we have the IDEC and CFI Forum, Ghana Speaks High-Level Forum, and they talk of advancing peace and unity, as well as national cohesion in Ghana, and that's what we're all hoping and looking out for before, during, and after the elections. It's my singular honor and pleasure to call the Ghana Police Ceremonial Band for Yenara Asasini before we go for the opening prayer. Please, let's put our hands together and appreciate them. Thank you very much indeed. Please, let's appreciate them. Thank you. Kindly join me on the podium if you're here, Most Reverend Matthew K. Jempi, for the opening prayer.
Please, may we stand, if we may, and pray. Moments of silence. May we place ourselves in the hands of God of peace, God of unity. May we all present our nation into the safe hands of God, who knows all things and directs all things towards his will. May we pray. Almighty God, you are Father of love and peace. Peace, perfect peace, is your Son Jesus Christ's gift to the world and to all Ghanaians and at all times. In the course of time, we have blurred this peace by our actions and inactions, by our greed and insensitivity to the needs of others. Even we threaten to destroy this peace during and after our elections. Because you have given us peace, we do not have to ask for it again. Our request, however, is that you make us wiser and teach us how we may sustain, promote, and keep this peace in our nation. Lord, may this encounter and interaction this evening serve as an occasion for Ghanaians to learn and know how to protect this peace amongst us and in our nation. Then, Lord, we entreat you always, bless our nation, bind us together. May the peace and progress of this nation always be the priority of every Ghanaian. We make our prayer through your Son, Jesus Christ, who is Lord and King of peace forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you very much, Reverend Father Matthew Cohesion. He's actually the president of the Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference. Please, let's put our hands together for him. I think it's only right that at this time I introduce some of the dignitaries on the high table to all of us. I have already introduced Reverend Father Cohesion, so I'm going to go on and introduce Reverend Father Michael K.A. Kweku. Kindly wave to us. Let's acknowledge your presence. Dr. Emmanuel O. Akwete, please wave to us. Let's acknowledge your presence. Professor Bafo Ajimendria, let's acknowledge your presence if you are here with us. Next, we have Madame Joanna Opare. If you are here, please let's acknowledge your presence. Sheikh Arimiao Shaibu, please, let's see you. Kindly wave, let's acknowledge your presence. And of course, last but by no means the least, our keynote speaker today, His Excellency Peter Cardinal Kwejo Appiah Texan. At this juncture, it's my singular honor to introduce to you the Vice Chair of the Civic Forum Initiative, Dr. Emmanuel Ansan. Please, let's put our hands together and welcome him to the podium.
Thank you very much. Because of time, I'll be very brief and also wish to apologize once again on behalf of Civic Forum Initiative and IDEC for the delay in starting the program. As we welcome each other to this very special program as a prelude to our election, there are two words we want to emphasize, and especially for those who think that political engagement such as this or discourse such as this is just becoming too much and it's just a routine. We believe that elders have a role to play in our society. And it is said in our Akan language that "Sepeni ni ufia die," or woe to a family that does not have an elder. And we respect the voices of our elders as a nation. That's why we have gathered chiefs and elders, queen mothers, and priests and senior people in society this afternoon to hear wisdom. We also believe in the power of words, that words are more powerful than the military might. And so we also believe that words that are spoken, wise words, softens the ground and gathers people together and does a lot in terms of productivity. And that's why we have taken time off to have our special guest today and to gather you together and for you to send out the message of peace and goodwill to all people of this nation and beyond. So on this note, I believe Dr. Akwete will do a lot more detail. So on this note, I want to welcome you once again to this high-level forum, Ghana Speaks. I would also like to introduce briefly our special guest in the person of Joanna Opare, Ajua Opare. It will be an abridged version of her profile because of time. Mrs. Joanna Ajua Opare, who is an eminent member of the governing board of the National Peace Council, is a seasoned international consultant with over 30 years of experience in development work, 26 of which are exclusively in gender, social development, and peace building. She holds a Master of Arts degree in Population Studies from the University of Ghana and has had other training in management and leadership skills, including the African Union UN Senior Mission Leadership course in peacekeeping in Botswana. Joanna has worked as the National Program Manager of the UN System Program for Promoting Gender for 5 years and served as gender consultant and advisor on the CEDAR-funded project in the Office of the President from 2007 to 2009. Joanna has received awards from the Government of the Gambia, the Ministry of Gender, Children, and Social Protection of Ghana, and the International Institute for Governance and Development and Outstanding Leadership Forum, respectively, in 2009, 2015, and 2018. Joanna's passion to see women aspire to great heights in their fields of endeavor. She's affable, proactive, result-oriented, and is credited with excellent communication, facilitation, and presentation skills. Ladies and gentlemen, our special guest, Mrs. Joanna Ajua Opare. Let's welcome her.
Your Eminence, Cardinal Peter Appiah Jackson, eminent members of the National Peace Council, very distinguished guests gathered herein, our wonderful Queen Mothers, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, and all other protocols duly observed. On behalf of the governing board of the National Peace Council, I would like to welcome you to this dialogue ahead of the 2024 general elections. Though we would have wished that this program had come off earlier than today, it is still our pleasure to meet and engage with you to strengthen our collective mission of ensuring the peace and stability of our beloved country, Ghana. Distinguished participants, it may be recalled that the current governing board of the National Peace Council was inaugurated by His Excellency the President in November 2020, barely 2 months into the general elections, with a mandate to prevent, manage, and resolve conflicts and to build sustainable peace. Though the task was challenging at the initial stages, the governing board, through the support it received from stakeholders, including IDEG and all of you, was able to perform its functions to ensure the environment was conducive for the conduct of peaceful elections in 2020. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I am happy to report that since the end of the 2020 elections, the Ghana Peace Council has undertaken a series of programs and activities for the conduct of subsequent elections in the country. Firstly, the National Peace Council engaged stakeholders in the 5 constituencies where loss of lives occurred, namely Ewutu Senya, Ododo Dio, Ablekuma Central, Techiman South, and Savelugu, and used the lessons and recommendations from those engagements as building blocks for a 3-day national conference that took place from 29th June to 1st July 2021 in Ada. Participants included the majority and minority leaders of parliament, the general secretaries, chairmen, and other members of the political parties, the judiciary, the electoral commissioners, the ministries of national security and interior, security service commanders, academia, civil society, Secretary General of the Commonwealth, UNDP, and WANEP, to mention a few. The conference developed a roadmap that sought to counter election violence and strengthen processes to build greater cohesion, political tolerance, and nation building. The dialogue also charged the National Peace Council with critical responsibilities, including the following: that the National Peace Council should urgently take steps to facilitate the return of the NDC to the Inter-Party Advisory Committee. 2, that the Peace Council should facilitate a mechanism for collaborative partnership amongst the political parties. 3rd, the political parties, with the support of the Peace Council, should create coalition of support for change and negotiate on minimum standards for electoral reforms to address the trust deficit among the political parties, particularly between the NDC and the MPP. The Peace Council was also to seek audience with the judiciary to see if it could shorten the adjudication time frame for parliamentary elections. Accordingly, the National Peace Council has had regular engagements with different categories of leadership of the political parties and relevant state institutions since June 2021. The Peace Council has since engaged the outgone chairmen and general secretaries of the MPP and NDC and the EC on the return of the NDC to the IPAC. I'm happy to report that after 3 years of dialogue and persuasion, the NDC, that's the National Democratic Congress, returned to IPAC in December 2023 and has been active since. Secondly, the NPC has engaged the immediate past Chief Justice and also the current one on the issue of setting time limits for adjudicating parliamentary election disputes. This has resulted in some proposals by the relevant stakeholders to address those concerns, and we expect this will take place after these elections. The Council has also facilitated dialogues between the political parties on one side and the security agents on the other towards improving the trust between the two. In addition to the above, the Council has continuously engaged with the Chief of Defense Staff, the IGP, and on various issues of national interest and preparations towards coming elections. The Council has had a number of engagements with the Electoral Commission to discuss various issues of concern and sought clarification on matters that the public had brought to the attention of the Council. Further to the above, the National Peace Council has provided training in alternate dispute resolution for the political parties to help them resolve intra- and inter-party problems amicably. The Peace Council has had a dialogue with the Council of Elders of the political parties to evaluate the events in the political space, to determine strategic interventions to minimize the tension and possible violence in accordance with Section 3E of the Peace Council Act 818, which obliges the country to promote understanding of the values of diversity, trust, tolerance, confidence building, negotiation, mediation, dialogues, and reconciliation. In terms of managing political tension and violence, the National Peace Council since 2023 has created the Political Party Trust Building Platform to promote dialogue and consensus building among the political parties and institutions of state. As a result, a political party code of conduct committee has been set up to monitor the activities of the parties. The Council, in collaboration with the National Media Commission and with support from the Danish Embassy, has developed the guidelines on hate speech and other forms of indecent expressions to provide a clear checklist that will assist the media and those engaging in media to prevent hate speech and promote social cohesion. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, aside the election-related activities that I have outlined above, the Peace Council continues to facilitate and develop mechanisms to prevent, manage, and resolve conflicts in the country. Some of these are contribution to strengthening mechanisms and awareness amongst violent extremism and against violent extremism and terrorist activities in the Sahel that threatens coastal countries, including Ghana. We are also engaged in building social cohesion among the various sections of the Ghanaian society through awareness creation and capacity building. Finally, I must say I feel greatly honored to represent the chairman of the National Peace Council as chair for this august gathering and call on all herein gathered to join me make today's deliberations a very successful one. May the good Lord bless us all as we join hands to ensure Ghana remains a peaceful nation today and always, for we have none other but Ghana. God bless you and thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. I know for a fact that the Peace Council is doing so much, but the mistrust still remains. Maybe you need to engage the public as well. That might help. I mean, for somebody to tell me, I'm not voting because of this or that, I'm like, hey, then you won't be exercise your responsibility as a citizen of Ghana. I don't know how many of us know this. So maybe some public engagement.
Good afternoon to all of you, and I must apologize for coming in late. It wasn't deliberate, but I'll tell you, if you do not have experience of being in a convoy with His Eminence, the Cardinal, to a place like this, I learned the lesson, and I'll coach you subsequently. I've been with him since some time, maybe 12. And then on our way coming, they got stuck in traffic around the Jubilee House main entrance, Flagstaff House. So told me, they said, hey, where are you? They've taken another route through immigration, and they were almost close to Rawlings, and I was still where the Mormons church was. So this is how we separated. And the lesson then is that never attempt to overtake or get on faster than in a convoy with the cardinal. I don't know how he did it, but they got here early. So that's why I'm late. So I'm truly sorry for that, and I would apologize, but this is what happened. Although I've been asked to do a welcome remarks, in our meeting before setting off, His Excellency, the Cardinal said, look, frame the issues and I will address. And it's what I have to do now. The formalities and so on then gets put aside. So it's not a welcome address. I'm framing the issues for him to address. You all know that our eminence, the Cardinal, has been part of the electoral history of Ghana that regulate, observe and regulate and make sure that their competition doesn't harm the interest of the public, even if they are for profit and competing. In the case of politics, we didn't have a clue, and the economic method did not apply to them. And so, out of frustration and so on, the Civic Forum Initiative, which has been introduced, to think through how we can get the two parties to do peaceful elections and with credible outcomes, fair outcomes, and let us move on in peace. It wasn't easy, but it was the first entry of the Institute for Democratic Governance and the CFI and others into how civil society can intervene between two giant political parties to steer our country off violence. The question is, we did that, but has the threat, the potential threat of violence, eviscerated? Has it been tackled? Has it been stopped? Since then, elections in Ghana, 2012, 2016 was a bit mild, but 2020 we saw what happened, and clearly it's been very difficult managing the processes in order to prevent widespread violence. And this has been the work that the Institute and the civil society networks that we work with have been preoccupied with. And that has led us into situations where when His Eminence Cardinal Texan, our Peace Council chair, convened members and leaders of faith, Christians, Muslims, and so on, and tried to bring them together to talk to party leaders. After midnight, going from house to house, what I observed was that the love for Ghana and determination to ensure that violence will not get out of control for us to result or end up in a place for violence or civil war lies in the hands of leaders of the Peace Council and probably their convening power. So 2008, it took a third round to come out of this, and how that helped us steer carefully, I think, lies in the hands of His Eminence and his colleagues on the Peace Council and what they did. Maybe it's a story to be told later, but it was quite beautiful to see how their convening power and integrity helped them open doors of political leaders whom we couldn't even get on phone. So that's the story we told later. But when he left, Most Reverend Asante took over, and the goal has always been to avoid electoral violence because it could be devastating. The two parties have strongholds. They split the country into the regions and so on. And what hits you is that their political behavior cannot be regulated because the state has no institution for regulating it. But certain interventions were meant to build confidence in the system and also enable them play by the rules. And one of which was the decision by the late
President Atta Mills to trigger constitutional work of the CRC, Constitutional Review Commission, so that we could see how institutions will be built and certain conditions created for our duopolistic parties to play their politics. So we had CRC, but we also had biometric register being introduced. And it became quite an issue to see also the third phase of the evolving fear of violence. The by-elections at Tiwa and subsequently Talensi and others were so violent. You ask yourself, hey, what's happening here? Then we went through that. It wasn't upscaled, controlled. But then in 2012, we had the biometric register, which we all had confidence no one can cheat, no one can do whatever. But again, we ended up in court in 2013. For the first time, the Supreme Court providing the leadership that helped, and the systems or processes that help us go through 8 months of adjudication and the results. And civil society, again, groups being mobilized to encourage the parties to accept the results or the decision of the court. So I remember the senior counsel, Kujeto and others in the banquet hall of the State House, talking to people that when you go to court and the court decides, you accept the result. You don't, you don't revert to violence. And it was at the banquet hall they all came and spoke, except the candidates who were taken out. Since then, what we have been doing in IDEC with the CFI and others is to understand why our democratic system, which is a multi-party democracy with elections, is drifting more towards violence. And we came to the conclusion that the design of the system did not anticipate this, did not take into account the emergence of two dominant parties we call duopolies, with no regulatory institution in place except the Electoral Commission, with no institution to check their funding, how it came about, with no regulatory institution of the state to discourage their resort to vigilantism, mobilizing people in a militant way that said, at local elections level, they'll be fighting, and some will be armed, and so on and so forth. So the response we had then was to say, hey, there has to be these institutional gaps needs to be filled. Why is it that there's no regulation of the parties? Why is it that the parties do not just account for where they are getting the money? Why can't they work together but must threaten everybody? And we saw the violence getting up. Fortunately, CRC, CRIC results, and IDEC coming up with the idea, together with the CFI, that a multi-party democracy reform was needed, with local government at the center to create more space, was important. And what led us was the realization that our system of government is never fully a multi-party democracy. The executive arm remains a closed arena for political parties, Article 55(3) or 55, all of them, and that opposition parties have no space in the executive arm. They can't contest local elections, and they were not appointed. So we called it the hybrid system. It's only Parliament that you saw this multi-party elections, but post-elections, that's where we expect the development dividends and the public service delivery. The system has not been set up for that. When we interrogated eminent people such as the late, may he rest in peace, Speaker of Parliament Justice D.F. Annan, P.V. Obeng, and many others whose name, Kojo Chikata, whose names we've, and others whose name I can't recall, they said that the system under which we are governed is not a fully fledged multi-party system. There had to be a compromise or a consensus for them to move into the Fourth Republic. And the consensus then was that the local government area would exclude political parties so that cadres of the PNDC and others who did not want political parties, that's what they accepted, that's what they wanted. And those who won parties will have parliament and the election of the president. We've tested that system. They did not anticipate the emergence of duopolies, but they thought that with time, the two parties working together would then open the path to us to development of the country, which is what the people needed, and which is also in the Constitution, Chapter 6, for instance. So with these lessons, we thought that we must push for local government reforms, what we call the multi-party democracy reforms, which will give us a fully fledged multi-party system, not the hybrid. But there again, it was extremely difficult. We couldn't build a consensus. And then realized that the state has no institution to build consensus among the political parties in the country. And what civil society can do is always limited. And so we've seen the escalation then, subsequently, of violence in our elections. I mentioned Talensi earlier, but by-elections, parliamentary elections are more violent than the main elections. In 2020, therefore, you find that was the first time we've seen parliamentary elections with, well, it ranges 5 to 8, but I see their lordships, Supreme Court judges Kulindi and Bafuboni, who have worked on this, how to speed up parliamentary cases quickly and make sure that fairness and justice prevails. This is the system we are talking about. 2020 elections was the one that was most violent, given the number of people who died. But when you look at it throughout, you also see that we don't have confidence in the biometric voter system as a digital system that could help us prevent many of the wrong things that we do. It still had to be politicized that in Ghana, you can have a digital system, but whether you are MPP or NDC defines whether you should see the system as working significantly, consistently for everyone. You have to change it. And we changed it in 2020, and we changed also an electoral commission. The result is we still had to go to the Supreme Court. And out of that experience, we are now told that the two parties, one says that in the 2024 elections, the MPP in government says they want to win by, maybe I could say by hook or crook, but they didn't say that. I'm saying that. And two, the NDC, that also says, I'm not going to be in opposition for a third term. We also have to win. So it set up the stage for what we suspect could be violence. And the Peace Council has reported to us that reports that they have shows that armed vigilantes have grown, in spite of the fact that we have threats of violence in the northern area because of jihadists in Burkina, Mali, and others, and the attempt to enter our country, and which is why there's so much being invested there. But the most notable thing they've said is that it is the poverty in the north, the lack of development, education, access, and so on, that lures them towards potential jihadists who come with all sorts of problems. So this is the reality we are facing. Attempts to amend the Constitution and bring institutions together did not work, or because they could not find consensus. Look, 243, the referendum, and so on. And we've moved on. And if you look at the party's manifesto, I think we still have a lot of work to do to build consensus. And democracy thrives on consensus building, especially in a multi-party system. So what I've said to Cardinal, His Eminence Cardinal Jackson, is that people fear our elections will be violent, the 2016, because both parties want a third term by hook or crook. And we are told that vigilantes are there. But we have also seen situations in the country that is mobilizing people differently. And the youth are a bit restless because the system is not working for them. And so have we also learned that truly with the sub-region and what is happening, it will take quite some effort to ensure that peaceful, credible elections occurs in this period. So we haven't done what we should do to deter violence. We haven't done what we should do to increase our confidence in a peaceful, credible, and fair elections. And when we look at it all, we have tended to put all the blame or whatever or expectation on the Electoral Commission, that they would be able to do some kind of thing that would undermine confidence in the register, what they call a forensic register or examination of the register is what would assure us that this register, we can all go to elections with it and would have peaceful outcome and credible results, and the winner will be determined. It's a process still going on. The EC is struggling and other civil society organizations are involved. But the fact of the matter is that the reforms needed, the institutions required to manage a more challenging elections hasn't occurred. And we don't trust our chairman of the Electoral Commission because of the way they are appointed. NDC comes, they appoint. MPP, they appointed. And now that alone creates suspicion that people put in charge cannot be credible enough to do the work professionally in the national interest. But these are the things we're living with. So my summary of it to His Eminence was that violence is potential. There's a potential for violence. How would it end? We don't know, or what will stop it? We don't know. But the police say they are ready, they are working hard. We know the army also says, look, we will back the police to make sure peaceful elections take place. But the environment in which we are operating now and expecting elections is not that of 2012, it's not that of 2008, it's not that of 2004, or even 2000, because coup d'etat has taken place in our region, and ECOWAS is too weak to deal with them. Ghana stands alone. Recently, Lomé, Cotonou, Togo, not only Togo, Benin also has said, hey, we've nipped a coup in the bud. The real country standing with its parties and the struggle to define a framework and get a peaceful elections in 2024, this year, 7th December, is Ghana. So there's a lot we have to do to turn the situation around. But it's not easy because the Electoral Commission is not trusted. They see it as because party, the NPP appointed the chairman, the chairman cannot be objectively for everybody, and changing the biometric technology that was used and so on, when the one that MPP NDC brought in could still be used viably, has also not worked. So I think I've put these issues across, and in my conversation with Cardinal, he's more interested in there has to be peaceful, credible elections in the interest of the people. And how that is done, how we get about it, is the challenge he wants to throw to us and address us. I think
Pope Francis to see how they can fashion peace. So you went, or our protagonist went to meet a peacemaker. And having gone to meet a peacemaker, the conversation bore also on that. For not to listen to the call and invitation to peace is to invite what in his language he refers to Third World War began in pieces. And the invitation for all to recognize this and to move away from that. So these are the leaders that are taking us into 2024 elections. And to these leaders then, these are the people I like to address. Not the party henchmen or whatever, boys or girls, or whatever. These are the who are capable, should be capable of exercising leadership over the groups so that we have peaceful election or not. And it is to them that the call and the cry goes first. Yes, so you went to visit Pope Francis. This is the Pope who kisses feet so that there be peace. And he cannot kiss feet so that you go back and fight. So this is a Pope who invites to fasting and prayer so that there is peace. And he cannot be doing all of that when it is the encouragement and the fomenting of vigilantes and internal fighting and rancor. This also is a Pope who believes that every social institution must serve the human person and not the other way around. So democracy as a system and a form of governance must serve the human person and not the human person reduced to serving democracy. Because at the end of the day, it's an institution, a human institution. And it's created to serve the human person or to promote the well-being of the human person, not the human person reduced to serving an institution. And he'd say the same thing even about economics and economy. All of these institutions must serve the human person and not the human person reduced to serving all of these institutions. Otherwise, the institutions become lords over the human person. The institutions, however, are supposed to be human-centered because they're meant to promote the dignity and the well-being of the human person. And so if any of our institutions would then, instead of serving the human person, become institutions which now lord over the human person and have the human person rather reduced to servitude under them, they're the institutions which merit study and attention because it's become a travesty of democracy or any social system that we want and we need to have. So this is also the language of Pope Francis. When Obama was the president, he exemplified this statement clearly, which made Obama quote him before the House of Senate. He said, it doesn't make the news or headline of the newspapers when a poor man dies on the street corner from overexposure from cold. But when the stock exchange falls 1 or 2 points, it's the headlines. So which is more important? The life of a human person or the stock exchange falling 1 or 2 points? This is what the Pope means by institutions must serve the human person and let the human person reduced to serving institutions. So this is something for all of us to consider. If any human institution will get to the point of reducing us to servitude, then it's time we call for a change of that institution. And so democracy, our form of governance, is meant to serve us, promote our well-being and our common good. For every human person created in the image of God, if you Islam, if you Christian, man of Bible, you believe that God created the human person in his image and likeness of God, and with that comes dignity. So the dignity of every person is from, his creation is from God. It's not something that a government bestows on an individual. So on with. And what is that? And so this is a thought to have while we veering towards elections and are considering these options.
that which we're going to vote for must be an expression of our freedom. For when we say that a human person has dignity, the dignity manifests itself in the fact that it's a person and it's a free being. And the free being, the exercise of freedom, is in the choice of a party to vote for. And that choice cannot be taken away from people. Otherwise, you reduce their dignity as human beings when you take away the possibility of exercising or making a choice. So we need to guarantee people the possibility of making a choice. It's in that their humanity or their personhood is fully expressed and lived. And so on account of this, all structures then must serve the dignity of the human person. And in 2015, when at the United Nations in New York, Ban Ki-moon stood over to present the SDG goals, what he said was that this is a human dignity narrative that leaves nobody behind. The SDG goals were a human dignity narrative that leaves nobody behind. No human being in his dignity needs to be left behind. And all structures then are meant and intended to serve and help us all realize the fullness of our dignity. And so the other thing that I like to observe or talk about this afternoon, over about the thing of a choice and the thing of having these structures serve our well-being and not reducing us to serving the well-being of these other choices, is the fact that our leaders, so the three protagonists who are going to be influencing the conduct of the elections come December, one exiting, two coming on, and therefore debating among themselves. This is a very healthy human activity to engage in and to take place, which should not involve any acrimony, except that there are some other motivations which are not declared. And those motivations, they come out all the time. 2 years ago, I think it was, how do you call it, UPSA, the university out there invited me to give talk about common good, the well-being of all of us. And there I noted that what is important to recognize that the common good is the good of all of us. All of us having different dignities, the full realization of our dignities, that is the common good, that's the thing that we all desire, and the thing that we must all work towards. And the only obstacle to common good is a type of a hubris, the desire to acquire more, the desire to take advantage, the desire to make a profit. Can you illustrate that? In Boston, there is a territory, 50 acres, which is kept as a common for everybody to graze his cow in, and for everybody to be able to graze his cow on that, they limited the thing to 7 cows. You don't come in with more. So everybody bringing 7 cows, that property, that common pasture could serve everybody. And then greed comes up. What about if I had 1 more, or 2 more, and 3 more? And so with people yielding to greed or hubris within them, and exceeding the number 7, the common could not support what it was supposed to do, and it collapsed. That property now exists still in Boston, just that it's become a common park now. So there is something that is good for all of us, which we call the common good. The realization, however, of this common good requires regulation, a kind of a rule of law, to keep everybody within limits so that the common good could continue to serve all our needs. But the moment we yield to hubris, to greed, to something within us, the common good fails to to serve our needs. And this is a reality still with us. I'm not standing in a church, so I'm not going to preach about that. But that is something that happens. The desire to have a little bit more than the other, that ultimately makes the common good not serve the common needs of all of us. It collapses it. And as a people in a nation in Ghana, we face this. One last thing about Pope Francis I'd like to mention is, I know I wasn't there for the meeting between the heads of state, so our presidents and the Pope, but I saw the gift that he gave each of them as they left. It was a white cover book, which was about something that the Pope had written in 2015. The title of that book is Laudato Si, Caring for the Earth, Our Common Home. It's the biggest ecological work that the Pope had done when he mounted the chair. I don't want to brag, whatever, but our office provided a draft and happily made it to that encyclical. It was encyclical about ecology, care for our common home. And that's the title, Care for Our Common Home. But he did not only present the thing scientifically, but also presented the thing as also a man of faith, somebody who believed that creation was the work of God, and presented all of that. So what is at stake? What is at stake is this. So 2 years ago, I was in Sweden to participate in an ecological panel at which one young girl, whom all of you may have heard of, Greta Thunberg, you know her? You know Greta? Ever heard of Greta Thunberg? That small soul girl that will leave class and go and do demonstration about the ecology and all of that. So we're on the panel with this together with the Bishop of Sweden. And at the end of the conversation, the feeling was to draft a legal proposal to the United Nations. The title of that legal proposal was Ecocide Law. You know, ecocide? Side means homicide, means you kill, right? So ecocide means killing the environment. So this law was presented and was going to be sent to the United Nations to be adopted. And if it was adopted by the United Nations as a law, then it just meant that people could be prosecuted for ecocide, for killing the environment. I went to present the Pope, so it was the Pope to sign out me. And so I brought the news back to headquarters to see what they would do. But that is the thing. People have gotten to that stage and that level of enacting a law to prosecute anybody who kills the environment. Ecocide law is something that is presented before the UN for adoption, which, if adopted, would be something that people will be prosecuted and sent before court for killing the environment. I just rest my case, I won't go further. Because before I boarded the plane, I heard that there were planned demonstrations. I actually called them why they had this event on the 10th, seeing that there was in the news a massive demonstration planned for the 10th. So I was asking them, why did you put this down on the same day? And they say, whatever. So that's what we hear. But that's what it is, especially for us believers, the very many of us who are believers. You cannot believe in God and love Him when you destroy and abuse everything that He has created. Christians will read Psalm 19 and says that the heavens declare the glory of God and His handiwork announces glory. The handiwork of God is created entity. So if you love this God, you cannot abusively treat what He has created. Whether the ecocide people consider these legal passages or not, I don't know. But when we go to talk about the ecocide law, we do not only talk science. That is my office. We come out with all the scientific data, how the ozone layer and everything out there is affecting everything and all the storms and all. Like the United States now bracing this for the storm Philip to come. But religiously also, we can have a reason to also respect God's work. Basically, it's not for anything that for Christians. In the Bible, they say God planted a garden into which he took Adam. God did not place Adam in any place, but he prepared a garden. And garden is different from a wilderness. When you prepare a garden, you take off everything so that everything is in its perfect form. That's the garden God prepared to put the human person. A prepared place, worthy of attention and care. And when the human person was meant to till and to keep, again, those are two expressions that merit our attention. We are in Accra, Kempinski. This is not a Hebrew or a biblical language class. But all I like to tell you is that the word that they use in the Bible to till is the same word that they use for worship. So the same word to till the earth is the same word that is used for worship, avad. When Israelites or the people of God worship God, they do avad. And when they keep the land, God says also the same word. So treatment of the land is almost a reverential exercise that we need to get into in respect of God the Creator. And then till and keep. What do you do when you keep? Look at what Cain said when God asked him about his brother Abel. Where is your brother? And what was the answer? Am I my brother's keeper? Brothers are supposed to keep each other. And if now God says Adam should keep the earth, then God was inviting Adam to treat the earth as if it was a brother. Not anything to be used abusively, but anything to be used in this warm brotherly relationship. So that's the reason why the Pope wrote an encyclical on the care for our common home. Because our environment is of so great importance also to God. My dear friends, so my thought this afternoon, a lot has been said about electoral commission. For me, if that requires a constitutional review, it's a suggestion that can be made by the Peace Council, by IDEC, by all of these social institutions to call for that. But if the Constitution says that the president elects the Electoral Commission, then so be it. If that's what the Constitution stipulates, unless you change that Constitution, you can't do anything about that. So we need then to look at that and see if this is conducive to whatever. Emmanuel says several other details that, people he talked with in the past advised him about that certain thing missing. Fine, let us do that. But who says that the fact that somebody chooses somebody does not mean that the person cannot be neutral? Our example speaks the point. The first Peace Council was created by Kufuor. He was a sitting president. But the fact that Kufuor created the Peace Council did not mean that the Peace Council had to be pro-Kufuor government. Indeed, leading that group at the first instance of it all, we recognized right away that the validity of our role and function would depend on our neutrality. So we moved ourselves from pure government support, UNDP, and embassies were the ones supporting our activity, not government, to ensure that our neutrality was portrayed and seen by everybody. So you can be elected or chosen by a government, but that does not mean you cannot be neutral or objective in anything. So in that sense, the EC may be whatever, but does not mean that we cannot have neutrality under him. So let us just pray and exhort one another. Dear friends, I don't have much to say. My big thing, as I said, is on the three protagonists, the three leaders. They're the ones who visited Pope Francis, and they're the ones I'm inviting to come away with some of the values and some of the virtues that they experienced from their engagement with the Pope. And it's one of peace. It is one of respect for the dignity of human person. It's the one of not putting any institutional structure over the dignity of a human person, but putting the human person first. It's one, therefore, of cordial relationship and harmony, and not one of conflict and hatred. So with these values that they got from the Pope, I want to invite the protagonists, outgoing president, two incoming presidents, to just take the cue and the lessons that they drew from their visit to Pope Francis and make that influence their own conduct and their leadership of their parties, just as the leadership of the country, whomever it pleases God to place over this land. And for the rest of us gathered here, may they enjoy our support and, most importantly, our prayers for peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I wish we were all here to give him a good handshake. We're grateful. So 3 things stuck with me: leadership. Leadership, leadership, leadership. Our democracy must serve us and not the other way around, because it should promote our well-being and make us dignified like the good Lord made us. And common good. May I have a little more? We're not Oliver Twist, so we can't have a little more. Our common good. We're grateful, sir. Please, one more applause for him. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. So at this juncture, we are going to take some reflections, but before we do that, may I invite you one more time, the Ghana Police Ceremonial Band, for a very short interlude. Thank you very much indeed. Please, let's put our hands together for the Ghana Police Ceremonial Band. Just a short interlude. Thank you. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Ghana Police Ceremonial Band, thank you very much. Thank you. At this juncture, we're going to invite you to the microphone, Professor Bafo Ajimandria. He has a few reflections for us. Please, let's appreciate him as he comes to the microphone. Former UN Senior Governance Expert and CEO, J.A. Kufuor Foundation, Prof. Bafo. Please, another round of applause for him. Thank you.
Madam Chair, maybe as I've been shown today, I should also stand on previous protocols and just say good afternoon to all of you. Coming here to reflect on what the Cardinal has shared with us, I thought it would be an easy task, but listening to him, I have to be careful. And by the way, if I go wrong, I'm a Catholic, I'll go for confession. When my good brother Emmanuel made the remarks, he referred to the past work of the Cardinal in peace-making in the country. Many. But there are at least two things that he's done that I'm not sure is in the public domain. He just mentioned one himself. But I recall in 2002, I called him. He was then the Archbishop in Cape Coast, and just reported to him concerns of many people about the relationship between the incumbent president, then President Kufuor, and the late former president, Jerry Rawlings. As you know, there was bad blood between the two of them, and publicly, the former president was, Rawlings was spewing out all kinds of words. So the task, therefore, was who do we get to see to mediate between these two statesmen so that there will be peace between them? And of course, it was the Archbishop then, Cardinal, that we turned to, and he took it up. He met the two leaders. I don't know how he did it, but he did meet them and had some serious conversations with them. And I think not soon after that, the battle kind of ebbed out a bit. That is not in the public domain. And 2008, he referred to that. But what impressed me was that at that meeting, the Catholic Archbishops of Accra's residence, when we were wondering how we contact the late President Atta Mills and the now President Akufo-Addo, the Cardinal walked to the corridor, pulled his cell phone, and spoke to the two of them. You remember that? And again, what was potentially a serious problem for the nation dissolved because the two leaders agreed to meet privately to seek peace. I just wanted to say this, relate to these two incidents to show you how far the Cardinal has been part of this. And today he's here to continue that crusade. So we just have to thank you for your untiring effort for peace in our country. As he spoke, I think all of us were thinking, because he provoked some very interesting thoughts in all of us. And I don't just want to recount what he has said, but let me mention just a few. This lack of national vision issue that he raised, just think about it. It's been talked about for years. And because of the structure of our political system and the way we practice democracy, is not being able to achieve that. At one point, one government produced a nice piece by the NDPC. A new government came and decided to jettison that for all kinds of reasons. So as we speak, manifestos have become what people refer to in making their choices, rather than a national vision that can guide all of us towards the Ghana that we all want. And of course, you also talked about the interesting difference. The people incarnate of violence. Violence is an abstract thing. But it's people whose behavior or character manifest violence. And that's a very interesting point you raised. Because when you think of it, sure, violence is a neutral thing walking somewhere. And we, the people, we capture it, incarnate it, and we become violent people. So as we approach the elections, I think what you are telling us is to simply don't let us capture violence, incarnate it, and become violent people. And I think that is a very interesting thing you put out there. The many things you said, what really got home to me, Cardinal, was what you refer to as the realities. And the protagonists, the three leaders who could make or break this country as we head towards the elections. And we are pleased to know the Pope himself met them individually, gave them a book that we hope they've read so they can take lessons from that. And I think, to a large extent, the idea of leadership rings a big bell here. Leadership. They must demonstrate leadership. And I think if they do that, there will be reasons for us to believe that Ghana will continue to maintain the peace that we want. And so they need to have dialogue, they have to have engagements with each other, as well as with the key stakeholders. That is important. And when you talked about human-centered leadership, how institutions must serve the human person and not the other way around, that again is something that I think all of us have taken very kindly. And the final point that I can mention is said so many things, the idea of the common good, which can easily be upended by greed. So it's not only politicians, by the way. All of us as humans can be greedy. So once we embark on greed, we undermine the common good. So if the common good of Ghana is to have peace, development, and prosperity, then in all our actions, hopefully, we are not going to be greedy and know that we need to save something for posterity. As for the ecocide law, you really want to mention Galamsey, that's exactly it. It's a topical issue. Hopefully, solutions seem to be, we are getting to somewhere with a new initiative by the president to ensure that we bring this canker to some kind of, under some kind of control. But you see, some other issues about the threat of violence. I made a very powerful point. I shared it completely. You've been away 14 years. When you were here, towards every election, you and others will come together and find a way to save the nation. 14 years later, you are back to do the same thing. So it seems like any time as a people we are heading towards elections, we are we are put on the brink because we're not sure what is going to happen because of the statements and actions of political actors, putting fear and panic in the citizens. That, I think, provokes us to begin to think seriously about the kind of politics we have. There's no better system of governance than democracy. It doesn't mean democracy is the best system. It's not. But we are here to find a better one. Until we find a better one, that's the only thing out there. But I think that maybe there's something we didn't do right. Democracy has two sides. The principal democracy, which relates to the ideals and the principles enshrined in most constitutions relating to liberties and the freedoms. Those are ideals that all human beings deserve and must have. So if you look at democracy, that side is there. They are universal values. The other side is what we call the practice democracy. This is where societies try to actualize those principles by creating institutions and systems to live. Whereas we also ascribe to the principles, the practice should be crafted on the basis of your history and your culture and your circumstance. You don't need to do what the Americans do, how they practice it, before you have a democracy. You don't have to do what the British do before you are. So when people talk about African democracy, they're not talking about anything different. All that we're saying is that African societies must think of how they can adapt democratic practice to their reality. And I think to a large extent, the way we structured our democracy in terms of how we practice it has not been very fair to us. Because the issues about elections that why the parties threaten and all that is because we have created for ourselves the winner-takes-all system. We don't have to have that. South Africa, other countries may not have that. A winner shouldn't take all because that's an exclusive system. Once you win, everything belongs to you. The state is entrusted to you completely. And the party that got 49% has no rule. So we should be thinking, how do we diffuse that? Will proportional representation be the way to go? Through decentralization, as Emmanuel said, when at the district level, we can participate actively, politically in the system. A party can win at the district level, but lose at the national level. So everybody can be part of it. So this system of exclusivity is part of the problem we have with the election. Towards elections, especially as was said, if a party has been sidelined for 8 years, they are hungry, they are thirsty, because this is their time to also come. And that intensifies the rivalry between these two parties and other parties. So I think that part of the system needs to be re-examined. Then the over-centralization of power at the executive level. And Cardinal made a very important. It is true. The fact that EC chairperson and members are appointed by the president shouldn't be a reason why we shouldn't trust them. It shouldn't be a reason. But the suspicion is always there. I don't know why. But because they are appointed by the president, it's difficult for the political parties to accept that this is a neutral body. So this new, I hope we'll nip it in the bud, but this new culture of a president comes, didn't like the previous chairperson of the commission to appoint my own. And I can tell you, if there's a change in, I don't know who's going to win, but suppose John Mahama becomes president again, my good friend Jim Mensah will not be there. They already said that. They said when we come, we're also changing. After all, it's so easy to change. One petition from a person to the president, onward to the Chief Justice. They constitute the panel. You are gone. Is that not so? Uh-huh. And that is dangerous. They are not happy. Yeah, I'm told that justices are not happy to be told to do that. Yes, but that is the system. So I'm saying we need to review the system. The president doesn't have to appoint. In other countries, in other democracies, electoral officers or electoral bodies are appointed differently. We can learn. There are so many examples. Because these are the two key areas that tend to breed problems as we head towards elections. So for me, the idea of the constitutional review that most speakers have alluded to, they are real, and there are certain parts of it that makes our elections so competitive. The exclusiveness, what we call the winner takes all, and the electoral commission that is never trusted by an opposition party. Why? I do not know. So, His Eminence, I think you have given a lot of food for thought. And I want to thank you, and I'm sure others will join me in thanking you for the thought-provoking statements you've made, for your commitment to peace to Ghana, and then continue our course. We thank you. We thank you so much.
Thank you for your reflective thoughts, Professor Bafo Ajimendria. And I saw him earlier, Mr. Freddie Blay, former chairman of the NPP. And indeed, all you distinguished ladies and gentlemen whom we haven't had the opportunity to acknowledge individually, we are grateful that you made time to be here. Indeed, every one of you is very special, and we know that this peace message that has been given to us would be spread. You know, I went to journalism school, and my advertising instructor told me, you see the big billboards you see on the roads, they don't send the message. The word of mouth messaging is stronger than the big billboards, TV, radio, etc., etc. So please, let's be the peace ambassadors and pass the message on as we move. And thank you for giving me the opportunity, Madam Chair. I'm at this time going to call you one more time to the microphone to give your closing remarks. Please, let's put our hands together for the chairperson for the occasion.
Thank you, Madam MC. As I stand here, I will not attempt or try to summarize what His Eminence presented to us. As he was speaking, I said, that is a mediator. That is a peacemaker. And those words don't come with colors. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to pick on a few things. Why do we lack a national vision? Why? It's been spoken of several times. Why do we lack it? We have all it takes to have one. So as we go home, let us look at where we are and think about how we will move that forward. And from all that has been said, I will want to sum up
that elections are about our values. What do we value as Ghanaians? I know we are peace-loving. I know we don't value violence. So wherever you find yourself, come December 2024, remember all the things His Eminence said and the key points that Professor Bafo tried to bring out. Remember our culture as a people and what we value, and ensure that Ghana remains a peaceful nation. We have nowhere else to go to. The sub-region is turbulent. We are the only peaceful one. Maybe the next one might have been the sea or the waters. But like His Eminence said, even the waters, we are not handling well. Ladies and gentlemen, I leave you with these few words to chew on them and think about what we want to see tomorrow as a Ghana. Come January 2025, I want to see all of us alive in a Ghana where democracy, in our own way, continues to thrive. Thank you for coming here, and God bless us all.
God bless you too, Mrs. Opare, for chairing this function. And I'll quickly introduce you back to the microphone, Vice Chair of the CFI, Reverend Dr. Emmanuel Ansah. Please, a round of applause.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. We have a long list to acknowledge, but we'll try to keep it brief. Begin with our key presenter, His Eminence. I have personal appreciation. The 2008 episode he spoke about, I was right by him, and I've been studying. I'm standing here today because I learned at his feet at the Christian Council and all the other meetings. I think I must have been the youngest among the lot, and I'm still learning. So I want to appreciate you for this consistency and the thought-provoking issues you brought up. And so please acknowledge him. I also want to acknowledge our chairperson. She's done so well, stood in well for the chairperson of the Peace Council and all other members of the Peace Council, some who are here and those who have traveled. We're grateful that you gave us the right person to manage affairs for us today. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. As for the rest of us, resource persons and helpers, we deem it our duty, and all the same, we are grateful to everybody, Madam MC, moderator, and all. We say thank you for the roles that you played. We want to also acknowledge our partners. Not much has been said about them today. If you look on your program, you'll see EU, Oxfam, Peace Council, Norway, Australian Aid, Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference, and all the other silent partners, the political parties, the EC, and all the institutions represented here. We want to acknowledge you all. There's the judiciary, particularly. Actually, the Chief Justice was here earlier and had to leave because of tomorrow's call to the bar. So we want to acknowledge all of you, dignified ones who came and missed out on other activities to stay with us, in spite of the fact that we actually held you longer than we were supposed to do. Thank you. Give yourselves a round of applause, please. Our media people, I saw Channel 1, they came so early, and other media houses were here so early. By 1, they were all set up, and they've been here for these 5 or so hours working for us to get this message out there on social media and getting it beyond Ghana. I want to say thank you for your time and for your efforts. I think that the audience have been spectacular. It's not often that we have these programs that audience stay that long, especially when you delay, when you go beyond your time. But you've been a very respectful and supportive audience. I want to say thank you for your time and for your commitment. And last but not the least, all the staff of IDEC, CFI, and technical people, and all those who have worked behind the scenes to get this program on and run it so well, working together, front, within, and behind. We say thank you. And may God bless you for your time and for everything you've done. Whoever has played a part that we might have forgotten, forgive us. You have not been forgotten by God. May the Lord remember you and bless you graciously. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Reverend Ansah. We are at this time going to call on the spokesperson for the National Chief Imam, member of the NPC Governing Board, Sheikh Arim Yao Shaibu, to give us the closing prayer. Please, let's put our hands together for him.
Oh, please, you may sit. Your Excellency the Cardinal, you forgot to include me into the trio that visited Rome and met the Pope. So that's. Let me begin my prayer with something. I'm going to make a sound, and you might all appreciate what I want. Look at how silent this place has become. But silence in the midst of prevailing fear, what is it? Silence in the midst of prevailing hate is tension. Silence in the midst of hearts that are connected for goodness and kindness is harmony. That is what our country is missing as we approach this year's elections. With the approach of this election, we are all gripped in the vortex of anxiety and fear because of political hate among us. So I begin by saying, Almighty Allah, I want to give you thanks and praises in a manner that is most befitting of your holiness and highness. Thank you for this evening. Thank you for the life of our keynote presenter, Colonel Pierre Texan. Thank you for those who have been inspired by God to bring us together as people who have common interests and common aspiration to hold together and to uphold the peace of our country and reject the mindset of violence as we approach elections. We thank you, Almighty Allah, for keeping us safe, giving us peace from 1992 up to this time. Thank you for guiding our thoughts and our walk up to this time. But as we approach, we can see that we have hit the end of our wits. We are not sure what is going to happen, and you are the one who guarantees peace as you inspire in us the spirit and the attitude of peace with which we relate. Inspire us, purify our minds and our hearts, guide our thoughts in what we do, even as we engage in our political discourse, in our political campaigns. Let your spirit of peace guide us, but will become the dominant thing that guides everything that we do. Keep our country safe from violence, because violence destroys the good things that you have given to us in the past, even now we are enjoying, but that which in a very speedy manner destroys the accomplishment of yesteryears. Thing that we do not want to experience. Bless our country, Ghana, and bless all those who are with us, all other parts of the world wherein there is no peace. We ask you, Almighty Allah, to send your message of peace. Grant them the peace, so that when we enjoy the peace, even within now, before the elections and during elections and after, we'll continue to give you the thanks eternally as we have done in the past. Now we do, and we shall continue even in the future of eternal future. Will continue because you are peace, and your attribute is peace, and you are the one alone who guarantees peace. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Refreshments provided. Please let's applaud ourselves as we thank the Ghana Police Ceremonial Band. Thank you very much indeed, and may the good Lord bless us all.
Please, as mentioned, there's refreshments in the foyer, and our dignitaries will come along with some of the ushers to a room behind this room for refreshments. Thank you.
Citizens must elect their own leaders at the grassroots. Our multi-party democracy at the national level must also reflect at the local level. Local government is the hub of every nation's development. The developmental needs of the districts must be accelerated to bring comfort to the people by increasing the district assembly's common fund beyond 20%. Let's reform our local government system with increased participation of youth, women, and persons with disability by an affirmative action. Our traditional leaders must have a dignified stake in governance at all levels. Party papa, party papa, party papa, party papa. Na ye ya wo na ye mo. Ghana, sabeye ya nevien. Party papa, party papa, party papa, party papa. Na ye ya wo na ye mo. Ghana, sabeye ya nevien. Give political parties a chance to participate in local government after several decades in absentia. Establish a multi-party democracy commission to regulate, monitor, and check the operations of political parties at all levels of governance. Away with the winner-takes-all system. All citizens and political parties must have an equal opportunity and stake in governance. Away with political vigilantism.